Das mit dem Bildschirm, das mit dem TV sehe ich kritisch, weil... Lass uns mal ganz kurz das nochmal anschauen, ja? Hating Apple is getting really hard. Wollen wir das auch nochmal schnell anschauen? Geht 10 Minuten. Ich habe eine Wahl? Nö.
Apple just demolished the competition, at least if you ignore the price. Not only is the Vision Pro looking basically revolutionary when it comes to headsets, but the new M2 Ultra chip in the new Mac could be equally promising, at least if its raw size is any indication. 24-core CPU, 76-core GPU, not to mention a 32-core neural engine. I mean, how on earth are they accomplishing all of this in a single chip? How have they managed to do this without the price for the Mac Pro skyrocketing? And how are they justifying the apparent lack of support for add-in GPUs and confirmed lack of support for memory upgrades? Oh, yeah, did I mention that it's not all good news? Naturally, we've ordered one of each anyway, so we're gonna be giving you guys the full rundown once they arrive. We're starting with the obvious eye catcher, the Vision Pro. Is this the most technologically advanced piece of consumer tech ever? Maybe. It's basically a wearable computer, and while Apple has been vague about a lot of things, they never mentioned Meta or the metaverse once, and they didn't really show off any VR games, so we don't know if we can call it a VR headset. What we do know is...
Also ich sehe es auch weniger als VR, sondern mehr als Augmented. Nicht virtual, sondern augmented halt. Also klar, man hat VR-Möglichkeiten, dass man sich da irgendwie was... dass man quasi in virtuelle Welten eintaucht. Ihr wisst, was ich meine. Aber ich glaube, für die Sachen, die am meisten interessant sind bei dem Ding, sind, glaube ich, eher augmented.
That it's Apple's first product capable of what they're calling spatial
AR-Brille mit VR-Funktion. Ja, genau.
Wait, isn't that just a fancy way to say augmented reality or AR? Yes. Yes, it is. And with the utterly mind-blowing price of $3,500 US, Apple has got an uphill battle ahead of them justifying this thing. But then again, maybe you'd be a fool not to buy one. According to Apple, it can replace your TV, your monitors, and even your sound system.
Das mit dem Bildschirm, das mit dem TV sehe ich kritisch, weil wenn du zu Hause zum Beispiel mit Freunden oder mit Familie Fernsehen gucken willst, ne, oder halt Heimkino, was auch immer, Netflix, bla bla bla. Ich sehe einfach nicht, dass alle mit so einer Brille da sitzen. Sehe ich aber, nee. Also das wird deinen Fernseher wahrscheinlich eher nicht ersetzen. Glaube ich nicht. Und für den Preis von 4 Brillen kauf dir lieber einen ordentlichen Fernseher.
That is quite the claim. But hold on to your keyboards, haters, because they might not be that far off the mark. At least if you live alone. First up, it contains Apple's first 3D camera for capturing spatial photos and videos, dual driver audio pods that can use audio ray tracing for spatial audio, an outward display that reveals your eyes through the already impressive internal display, which is a micro OLED with 23 million pixels. What? It also contains a ton of sensors to keep track of not only your eyes, you can supposedly select icons and objects just by looking at them, but your head, your hands, and your environment with precise tracking and real-time 3D mapping. Plus, did I mention that you can look into the headset and have it scan your face into a digital persona? Looks like Meta's cartoony avatars are even more DOA than they were already. To do all of this, Apple needed both an onboard M2 processor that's running computing-related tasks through Vision OS, that's Apple's new AR operating system, and they needed their new R1 chip, which is dedicated to all the cameras, sensors, and microphones that make the headset work in virtually real time. Apple's claiming that you are going to experience only 12 milliseconds of latency when using the device, which, if true, would mean that the experience should feel basically instantaneous. When they're boasting the ability to recreate the world around you in real time using LiDAR scanning and true depth cameras from the headset you're wearing while it supposedly runs cool and quiet, man, even at that price point, and with the fact that you have to have a tether running to a pack, I'm pretty blown away. And while I still think it's worth noting that you can get a great computer and a monitor and even a basic VR headset for less than $3,000, considering the cost of Apple's other devices with M2 family chips, it's actually kind of compelling to enthusiasts who might have bought an XDR Pro display
das ist
anyway.
Jetzt aber, wenn man jetzt verglichen mit anderen Apple-Produkten, das ist irgendwie weird.
It's doing all of this wirelessly with about 2 hours of battery life with support for hundreds of thousands of apps on day one. insane. Almost as insane as the fact that we might be losing GPU support on the Mac desktop for good. I mean, don't worry, they say. The shiny new M2 Ultra chip has the power of 7 Afterburner cards. So who would want an RTX 4090 anyway? And besides, you've got so many other things that you want to put in those 7 PCIe Gen 4 slots. Why a GPU? I mean, should we just be grateful that unlike the new Mac Studio, it at least has PCIe expansion? Maybe. It also has a 24-core CPU that they claim runs nearly twice as fast as the previous Gen 28-core Intel chip and support for up to 8 displays.
Ich rede gerade nicht so viel, weil er halt durchgehend redet und ich höre gerade ein bisschen zu. So einfach. Ne? Also ich mache gerade, im Grunde genommen ist das hier kein React, sondern ich gucke mir das Video einfach an.
All of which can stream 8K ProRes video.
Aber ihr guckt ja
auch,
ne?
They haven't outright stated that there will be zero support for dedicated graphics cards, but based on the lack of reference to them when directly talking about the versatility of PCIe expansion, and the fact that they acknowledged in the keynote very technical stuff, like the fact that you are locked into the up to 192 gigs of memory that you configure right from the get-go. No memory upgrades. It's not looking great, just like the price. Per usual, the top spec machine is going to cost you an arm and a leg with all the bells and whistles. So the better chip, max memory, and 8 terabytes of storage, you're looking at just under $12,000. Which, oh wait, only $1,000 per month for a year? Well, that's much better. But then you tack on a display, your add-in cards, maybe wheels for the case, and you're looking at even more than that. Even the base unit, which does at least have respectable hardware this time around, starts at $7,000. With that said, the old Mac Pro started closer to $6,000 and could skyrocket even higher if you kept adding memory. So considering all the inflation we've seen over the past 2 years, maybe it sounds pretty reasonable. We're not gonna know for sure just how much better or worse it's gonna be than having a few dedicated 4090s, but you can bet your butts that we're gonna figure that out once ours arrives, so stay tuned. And, I guess...
Ich weiß jetzt nicht genau, warum er die Preise gerade vorgelesen hat von den Macs, aber wenn der Gedanke war zu sagen, dass die Technik in dem Mac aber so und so teuer ist und dagegen ist ja das Division Pro relativ günstig, finde ich das kein Argument irgendwie. Zu sagen, ach guck mal, das ist aber teurer. Das ist irgendwie, weiß ich nicht, kein Argument so richtig. Da ist natürlich eine Menge, die 1000 Frames. Ich weiß, in der Vision Pro ist eine Menge Technik drin, eine Menge. Und wahrscheinlich ist es dafür vielleicht, angemessen, wahrscheinlich nicht immer noch zu teuer, aber weißt du, was ich meine, ne? Ah, da ging es nicht mehr um die Vision Pro. Okay. Weil er vorhin meinte, irgendwie im Vergleich, okay, dann ging es jetzt einfach nur darum. Okay. Good.
We're gonna have to have some gaming comparisons too. They pushed Metal 3 support pretty heavily.
Na gut,
and
aber ich
even brought
beruhigt.
out Hideo Kojima to help influence developers to please jump on board and start porting games to Mac. They showed off their new game porting toolkit, and you know what? I gotta give them credit. I am all for this.
Alles klar, Vision Pro, Mac Pro, Metal 3, MacBook Air.
I mean, just because I'm a PC guy doesn't mean that I want to sit on my computer and
Habt ihr mal wieder
laugh
recht
at the
gehabt.
Apple plebs for not being able to run many games outside of Minecraft and The Sims. This is a really good thing overall. I'm glad to see Apple treating gaming more seriously, and I hope to see developers porting more and more games in the years to come, especially if this new M2 Ultra GPU can push real FPS, and it's not just Apple hyperbole. Now, if you're not interested in a desktop that costs as much as a car or a house down payment, they also announced the 15-inch MacBook Air. And at just 11.5 millimeters thick with a no-wedge design, they're claiming it's not only the world's thinnest 15-inch laptop, but also the world's best 15-inch laptop, despite it not actually being available for another week. It starts at $1,300, which is a lot of money, but only $200 more than the 13-inch, has a display with support for 1 billion colors that reaches 500 nits of brightness, supports a 1080p webcam, and offers up to 18 hours of battery life. That last point. Quite a few folks here at LTT have actually switched to MacBooks just for their objectively superior battery life. And this seems like it's gonna be, well, just more of a good thing. And Apple kept things rolling with a few OS updates for both macOS and iPadOS. We were all waiting for the big announcement at the end, and then they just kind of glossed over the usual iPadOS updates, like lock screen customizability, a new Notes app, supposedly great for PDFs, a new Health app, and last but not least, the ability to set multiple timers at once.
We truly live in an age of wonders.
That's right, Apple's finally giving the people what they want. It just took 3, 5, maybe 10 years. No big deal. As for macOS, it looks like the new update, Sonoma, is getting a bunch of features that were already present on iOS and iPadOS, like screensavers and widgets. You'll also no longer have to say hey first. You can just say her name, which feels a little rude, considering that our future AI overlords may remember the way we treated them. They talked a little bit about how Safari is the world's fastest browser, and we'll be getting profiles like we've already had with Google Chrome for a while now. It's kind of weird how Apple refuses to admit when someone else comes up with a good idea, then they just wait a few years, implement it, and then don't mention the competition at all. Kind of like how I've gone through this whole video without mentioning our sponsor.
Das war's auch schon, das sind wir schon durch. Cool, haben wir wieder was gelernt, eigentlich gar nichts.